So I've reposted a lot of other people's compiled statistics, tweets, etc. regarding concerns about teachers and students going back to full-time in-person teaching. I hadn't created any response of my own. Initially I was too angry, too emotional to think straight. After calming down, I realized I had at least 10 points I wanted to make, so I needed to do separate essays on each. This seemed rather daunting, so I postponed. I also wanted to do it right, to make sure I had statistics and quotes to back me up. But I'm sitting here today thinking I'd rather do something imperfectly on the topic than do nothing at all. My number one frustration with the American Academy of Pediatrics is that they chose the summer of 2020, as coronavirus numbers continue to spike in this nation, to say that they recognize that children learn best when physically present in schools, and that this is well documented. All of my fellow public school teachers are now thinking, duh. But let me explain why I find them choosing now to take such a strong stance on in-person schooling versus remote instruction to be problematic, to put it mildly. Public schools have been losing students to virtual learning programs via charter schools for over a decade now. In Ohio, there are currently at least 12 in operation. Note, this is after the giant ECOT scandal, where, in case you forgot, it was determined that the electronic classroom of tomorrow had collected millions of dollars to educate thousands of students who never actually logged in. These schools still in operation, as best as I could calculate, received $173,682,944.75 in state funding last year. That's right, your tax money has been going to remote instruction for years. At least two of these schools, Connections Academy collecting $31,433,803.09 last year, and K-12, aka Ohio Virtual Learning Academy, collecting $92,459,198.63 last year, regularly spend a portion of their funding on advertising, both TV commercials and Google AdSense at least. Ask yourself, when was the last time you saw your local public school, or any public school for that matter, advertise? And note, they're doing it on your dime. Also, this is just Ohio, folks. I didn't have the time or energy to collect data for the other 49 states. So just to recap, approximately $175 million of Ohio taxpayer money is going towards remote instruction. This has been going on for over a decade. Advertisements exist to encourage parents and students to choose these virtual learning academies over traditional public schools. And now, in the midst of a pandemic, the AAP decides to shout to the rooftops how important in-person education is. Now, when teachers and students are at risk of contracting the modern-day plague, a plague that robs you of your literal breath, a plague that, even if you survive, may very well leave you with a ticking time bomb of neurological, lung, heart, or other unknown health issues. Now they want to tell you just how important it is to be physically in the classroom. Where was this concern when public schools started losing money to these virtual programs? If this is the case, why aren't virtual learning academies required on their advertisements to include a fine print warning? Electronic Schools fails to provide several key aspects of in-person schooling, including social and emotional development opportunities, as well as several social services that schools provide according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. If online schooling is so detrimental to student health and well-being that we should risk a pandemic to reopen them, surely they merit the amount of warning we slap on a pack of cigarettes. Yet, Even as our state government calls for school buildings to open this coming fall, these commercials continue to air courtesy of our own tax dollars. And before someone says, well, that's state funding, and Betsy DeVos is talking about federal funding, I would just like to point out that all 12 of the schools included in that funding number I gave earlier are charter schools. Charter schools, which Betsy DeVos has repeatedly endorsed over traditional public schools on record. She endorsed your money going to these programs before the pandemic. She endorsed your kids going to these programs before the pandemic. Now, as the U.S. continues to experience incredibly high infection and death tolls from this virus, she endorses your kids going into a building with 1,000+ other people for 7+ hours a day. So while the AAP has walked back their statement, I still find their timing of when to publicly and proudly support in-person traditional public schooling problematic. They've had years to denounce online schooling and promote the programs of in-person public schools. They picked now, which leads me to question their motivations. As for DeVos and Trump, I don't have to question their motivations. DeVos is utterly incompetent with no education experience. Trump wants to pretend the virus isn't happening, and in hopes of keeping the economy open and up, never mind the death toll, needs to keep people working. To do this, schools need to provide childcare. And as far as he's concerned, teachers, with their 4-year college degrees and many of us graduate degrees and more, are just that, glorified babysitters. Believe me when I say, I want with all of my heart to be back in my classroom with my students. I know I'm more effective there. And I know how many of them desperately need those 8 hours of support and positive messaging. Additionally, I know how incredibly difficult this will be for parents if businesses continue to stay open and no new stimulus money is provided. But I feel the inconvenience is a tax worth saved lives, and I feel a slightly less educated student is better than a dead one. And I will take the anxiety and stress and frazzledness of remote teaching for a few more months over infecting the people I love and care about, or frankly dying myself. Thank you for listening.